and gentlemen, today we welcome the blues rock superstar, multi-platinum Grammy-nominated Kenny Wayne Shepherd to the WBLZ radio studio. He's going to be appearing this Saturday on the 10th of August at his own Backroads Blues Festival. This is the second year that they're doing the festival, and it's at Art Park, which is a great venue. He's got Bobby Rush, the legend, Dwayne Betts, and Eric Johnson. What a great, dynamic, diverse group of artists you've got on this. So that's going to be Saturday, and I'm not sure what the start time is, but maybe you might know what that is. But it's probably going to be somewhere like 7, 8 o'clock.
I'm not sure. It's probably be earlier than that, just because there's multiple artists on the bill, right? So
Yeah.
we started that late. It would go on for it would go pretty late.
Yeah. All right.
They have a curfew that there's actually for that venue. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Actually 5 p.m. I believe is when the first. No, I don't. I have it right here in front of me. So this is the sound check schedule. It's not the actual show schedule. So I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, okay.
6:45.
Either way, it's going to be a great night of music or evening of music. My girlfriend and I saw Bobby Rush some months ago at a little club in Lima, New York, and he was telling stories about how he was entertaining Al Capone and Al Capone's brother, making those guys laugh when he was doing kind of a comedy thing. And the guy's 90 years old. He's winning Grammys, and he's out there touring with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. How awesome is that?
Yeah, Bobby's an incredible human being. Like, besides his musical talent, like the guy is just. Every time I sit down with him and we talk, I hear another story that just like leaves my jaw on the floor. The guy's just seen it all. He's done it all. He's an incredibly intelligent guy, totally talented. And he and I actually just did a record together that'll probably come out sometime next year. So definitely looking forward to that. But it was incredible working with him in the studio, and it's great, having him be a part of this blues festival. I mean, this is the third or fourth year of the festival itself, but it's the second year in a row that we've come back to this venue. And but Bobby's been a part of this festival before, and he'll definitely bring the house down.
I didn't know that it was 3 or 4 years old, because we saw it last year at Art Park when you had Buddy and Kingfish, and I think that was it, right? Just the three of you.
Yeah, that was it. Well, I don't know. Was that last year or was that the year before? But I don't know. I'd have to look at the schedule. But we did the inaugural run, the very first year that we did it, I guess. Yeah, that was with Buddy Guy and Kingfish. So
Yeah, maybe it was 2 years ago. I think you're right. Tough to keep all this show data straight up in my noggin here sometimes. But what I love about this festival is this isn't your first effort to share your influence and audience to bring attention to other artists. You had a platinum selling 2007 album, 10 Days Out, which you collaborated with B.B. King, Honey Boy Edwards, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, who your piano player Joe Crown used to work with. And also something we have in common was Pine Top Perkins, who was Muddy Waters' piano player for the last 11 years of his life. I was blessed to work with him. It was my first introduction to national touring, was playing with Pine Top. And so you've used your really big audience and influence to lift up so many of these artists and acknowledge and point to them as the originators, over the years, which is really a great thing.
yeah, well, it's like it's because of people like that people like me are able to do what we do, and they're the reason why people like me are inspired to do the. And because I grew up listening to these guys, and they paved the way, and it's just, you got to give credit where credit is due, and I think that's a tradition that I was taught by so many other artists that came before me. I mean, you look at guys like Johnny Winter, and you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan, and any of these more recent artists that had huge success. They always told everybody who the people were that inspired them.
Yes.
With this music. And so, I just felt it was it was important that if I was successful, I had a voice of any kind with any kind of reach, that I, preach the gospel of the blues, and tell people about the people that came before me and the ones that inspired me to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got a brand new album coming out this fall. It's kind of a segue from Dirt on My Diamonds Volume One, and we've been playing your music on my radio station here, in good rotation for a while. I love the songs. They're just really strong, original sounding tunes, like even stuff from the Traveler record and the next one, or was it the previous one? Nothing But the Night is one of my favorite tunes of yours. We play that one a lot here, and we played it on WBFO when I was the blues host up over there. Um, Nothing But the Night, Woman Like You, what's the other song? I Want You. These are, in my opinion, these are like examples, defining examples of what modern and contemporary blues rock is. Really, I mean, they're just the hooks, the songwriting, the production, the playing, and the performances of everybody. It's just great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, if you go back all the way to my very first record, that's been my recipe for my music. It's like to write songs that have good hooks and have great melodies, and songs that you can sing along with and hopefully will stick in your head. But at the same time, they also have a lot of great guitar work and a heavy blues influence to them. And so that's kind of always been my approach to writing and recording my music, and that's been one of the ways that and mixing it with other genres of music that I grew up listening to, and taking blues and kind of mixing it with rock, or R&B, or whatever you have. That's been the way that I've tried to continue to create music that I feel like sounds contemporary and sounds new and fresh and different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we come from that same era of, like when MTV was actually playing music. So you and I have a lot in common with, the artists that they were playing. They played blues on MTV, the Thunderbirds, and you and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, all that stuff. ZZ Top. That was all in regular rotation right next to, REM and the Psychedelic Furs and all that stuff. And I wanted to mention when we were talking about other influences, I wonder if you guys were using an 808 drum machine when you came up with was it The Best of Times? Is that the
Yeah.
song? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
And so
exactly.
there's
That's
there's like a
exactly it.
hip hop influence there.
Yeah, there is on that song, and also on the song "Sweet and Low." If you listen to that song, and it's got like the record scratching, and that whole groove is very much a hip hop influenced groove. And so, yeah, I mean, but I grew up listening to all of that stuff. I mean, my childhood, I was a child of the '80s, being born in the late '70s, and so I grew up in the birth of hip hop, and I listened to it. And so sooner or later, if you're a musician, that stuff will find its way into the music that you create.
Yeah. And you actually just kind of gave me a thought when we were going back to that era. You know that song, Telephone Call by Johnny Guitar Watson? It kind of uses that everybody rapping and talking and making those sexy sounds. I wonder what came first, that or like the Grandmaster Flash song that they play, at every nightclub around the world. I've often wondered the musicology of that. But anyway, I was just kind of wondering. I thought maybe somebody like you might know that. Um,
Well, I think James Brown is the godfather of rap, if you want to know the truth, you know.
oh,
So like,
sure, sure, yeah, I wouldn't
yeah,
argue with that at all. And you
yeah.
mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan, and obviously both you and I are huge fans of the Fender Stratocaster, and manhandling a Strat, playing with heavy strings and high action, and you do it with a very high degree of expertise and accuracy. Um, how many albums has it been since Ledbetter Heights in 1995?
Well, that's a good question. I'd have to go through the list and count. I'm not sure how many albums, but um, I don't know, probably at least 14 records of
About
some
15.
sort or another. But, I've done a lot of things in addition to just the Kenny Wayne Shepherd stuff. I did 2 albums with Stephen Stills. We put a blues
Right.
rock band together called The Rock. And then, we did the 10 Days Out thing. And there's been a number of additional projects and stuff that I've done over the years. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm actually more musically productive right now, I think, than I ever have been, to be honest. I got like 4 albums that I'm working on right now.
That's outstanding. Well, the reason I asked is because, ever since that first album, in '95, you have really grown and developed a sound for yourself. Taking those influences, it's one thing to be great at playing Hendrix and Stevie and blues and all our influences, but it's another thing to take it beyond that and do something with it. And there's no question in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of your fans' mind, that you have. Um, and one of the, I guess, reasons I say that is because you have added to the repertoire. That's kind of like the litmus test for me. When you look at Muddy Waters, you've got Hoochie Coochie Man, you've got Stevie Ray Vaughan, you've got Pride and Joy, all these great seminal artists that are epic artists. They all have like a group of songs or a song, right, that other bands are copying, that are being played night after night in some, nightclub by a band, a blues band, a rock band, or whatever it is. In fact, just the other night, I played a blues festival. It's not the big Crossroads Festival, but a different Crossroads Festival. And one of the tents in the stages, one of the bands was playing Blue on Black. And I was like, how cool is that? So
Mm-hmm.
you're one of those artists that has really developed a sound, and you've added to the repertoire so that nobody can take that away from you. That's rock music Hall of Fame stuff.
Right. Well, yeah, it's good. I mean, we've had a catalog of really successful songs when rock radio, when there was a format of rock radio that would embrace new artists, and it wasn't just all classic rock, and they were playing new music, and they also would play blues bass or blues influenced music. Had a string of singles that ran up the charts on the rock charts. And so, like Deja Voodoo, my first single, hit #5 on the mainstream rock charts back in
Right.
95, 96. And I don't know how many top 10 rock songs we've had. Blue on Black was like shattering records at the time for the most weeks at #1 in the history of the mainstream rock chart. So yeah, I mean, that's been kind of part of the deal is, having those kind of songs that were successful at radio. Radio helped really break my career wide open. And those are the kind of songs that people want to cover because, if they're in a cover band, you generally want to play some songs that hopefully the audience might recognize. And
Right.
so a lot of people recognize those songs because they were on the radio a lot back in the day. And I mean, I never wanted to be just a one-trick pony either. It's like, when I set out to write, I was given an opportunity to do for my first album. They said, they knew I didn't sing, and they said, well, you can make an all instrumental record if you want to do that, just all guitar, or just go make whatever album you feel inspired to make instead of trying to tell me what to do. They left it wide open for me to do it. And that's what I did is I made the album that I was inspired to make. And that's what I've done every time we've gone into the studio. And so far it's served me pretty well for 30 years now.
Yeah, and it's not like you're just resting on the laurels of, Deja Voodoo and Blue on Black. All these songs that I mentioned. I mean, dude, they're just as good and relevant, and I'm sure popular with your audience, like the newer stuff. Um, so one of the other things that you've got going on is you've got another signature Strat with Fender, and I wonder if you're working on anything, gear wise, a new amp or anything you're endorsing, for an amplifier or something like that.
Well, I haven't really endorsed any amplifiers for, at least 12 years or longer, because ever since Dumble started building the amplifiers, that's all I used. And so I stopped endorsing other amp companies because he was the one building my amplifiers. And now he's passed away. So I'm still using the amps that he built for me, but I'm experimenting with some other things. I mean, I am curious about all these, the trend right now is these, you know, like the neural quad cortex and the Fender Tone Master Pro thing that they came out with, and all these devices, which they're getting closer and closer to really capturing the true sound of these amplifiers. And for guys that don't have the money to go and buy 30 different amplifiers, all those different sounds, or they don't have the storage space to store the amps if they could buy them, it's like to have all that packed into one little machine,
Yeah,
that you can throw in a
Kenny,
backpack,
I
but
gotta
it's
I
all
gotta
it
tell
takes,
you, since you brought that point up, I've made that jump myself. It was a long time coming because I got into when the first pod came out. I tried that; it was good, but and then I've got a Kemper profiler, and it's great, but and I've used the plugins and the aux box and all this stuff, but it was always a but after every one of them. But recently
Mhm.
I've been using, if you look at any of my videos on Instagram or Facebook and check out any of the videos, chances are I'm using this amp that's like 2 pounds. It's made by Blue Guitar. It's called Amp One, and I can put it in my gig bag. And if I'm doing a fly date somewhere, I just say, get me an 8 ohm cabinet. And for me, Kenny, it's close enough. And the reason
Mhm.
why there's no buts is because if I'm on stage and I want to turn around and get harmonic feedback out of it, I can do that. I couldn't do that. I didn't get the real amp feel out of those other things that I mentioned in the past. But Thomas Blug's amp is different, and maybe it just works for me. But I think you're right. I mean, we're getting close where there's these quantum leaps in the technology where you can take something that you're not going to be doing a one-arm deadlift with a twin reverb, 80 pounds, and risking hernias and screwing up your spine when you're 60 years
Mhm.
old. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I've got this
Right.
rig now that's like 20 pounds, and I love it, and it doesn't change the way I play. I play the same way I would play as if I'm playing that 64 vibroverb that I've got sitting over there, so
Right. Yeah. Well, there's some of the biggest bands on the planet are using things like that, and a lot of people just don't know it. And you'll see all these rows of amplifiers on stage, and those are all just empty cabinets, and they're really
right.
playing through one of those devices, or they have two of them. One's a backup in case the first one goes down, and that's what they're playing through. And it's like for some people, it's like it's less maintenance. It's consistent, It's but what's interesting to me is the idea of being able to capture the sound of like
Right.
I remember when Line 6 came out with the pod and all that stuff too, and it was like it was cutting edge at the time, but it didn't even come close. It was to me that was more of like well, you can use this to jam in your bedroom, to keep the volume down and to have some different stuff. But it was more of like maybe a songwriting or a song demo tool. It was never like I never saw it as a potential professional tool to use on stage. But the game changer is like being able to actually, instead of using a bunch of preset sounds, that someone captures, like the ability to capture your own equipment, the sound of
Right.
your own equipment, um, because that's what you're used to,
Right.
and so the closer they can get to where you can capture the sound of your own equipment and have that, and I'm hoping that I don't know what Fender has for their now. It's just all their own sounds that they've captured and put into the device. They have the coolest actual interface, like the whole. It looks like a pedal board kind of thing, and it's really a very impressive looking thing. They sent me one when they first came out with it, and I've been messing with it. But hopefully one day they'll incorporate the ability for people like some of the other devices where you can capture the sound of your own equipment at home as well.
Yeah, well, the Kemper Profiler does that, and I know that's why like Metallica and those bands like to use it because you're actually profiling the sound of your Dumble amplifiers that are special to you. The only problem is that that profile doesn't feel like the amp. It'll sound like it, but it's not going to feel like it, and maybe inspire you to play the same way. So yeah, we're still a little ways off from that, as far as I know. I mean, I haven't played anything like that, but I remember when we did we did a show together some years back in Buffalo at Canal Side, and I still have people come up to me, man, and say what an epic concert that was. We only had like the 2 or 3 hours notice that you needed somebody, and I think some names were going around your bus, and Chris Layton, who's your drummer, recognized that he knew us, and so you guys asked us to come along. But I was only using I was using a super reverb that day that I bought for $30 back when I was in high school, and right behind it are your Dumbles. So it was, but anyway, Kenny's going to be at Art Park this Saturday with the Backroads Blues Festival, and he's got Bobby Rush, Eric Johnson. Is there a jam, by the way, at the end of this?
Well, usually there is, so we'll see. That all kind of comes together the day of the show, but assuming that time permits, because like there is a hard curfew. The show, like music, has to stop by a certain time. So assuming we have the time to do it, yeah.
Okay. So you're gonna have Chris Layton from Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble on drums. You'll have Joe Crown on keyboards, Noah, of course, Hunt on the OG voice of the Kenny Wayne Shepherd Band. Although you've really added a great dimension with your own sound on vocals. Kevin McCormick on bass, and you've got a horn section too. So there's really some value
Yeah.
in addition to your band with this ticket package.
Yeah, it's a really great lineup. The band, I think, is sounding better than it ever has. And, the other artists on the show, Dwayne Betts and Eric Johnson and Bobby Rush. I mean, it's a killer lineup. It's going to be a great evening. And, we want everybody to come out and have a good time. We had a great show the last time we brought the festival through there. So I'm anticipating the same this year.
Well, I would love to be there, and the only way I'm going to be there is if it rains and my gig gets canceled. I've got 5 gigs in 4 days to do this week, and be pretty busy. But I wish you the best. Hope you have a great show, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Kenny. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Good to see you, man.
Thanks.